Kyah Springs, welcome to In My Shell.
I am so excited to be here. This is so exciting.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. You are the founder of the nonprofit organization 6 Feet Above.
6 Feet Above.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, 6 Feet Above was founded in 2022 after COVID. I sat there and thought for a really long time about what my purpose was, where I was going, what I was doing to make an impact in other people's lives. And God kind of put the word 6 feet above on my head and it wouldn't stop. And I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And of course, I slowly realized that it meant, you think of what 6 feet above means. I'll tell you the quick story. I wanted to plant myself 6 feet under. Everybody knows what that means. I wanted to bury myself 6 feet under. But there were a lot of people who shined their light on me, and God watered me, and people fertilized me in my darkest hour. And I began to grow 6 feet above. And that just has so much symbolism to me about not just breaking soil and being alive, but doing more than just existing. So that's it. That's the story behind it.
And I know that one of the reasons this nonprofit is near and dear to your heart is because you yourself are a suicide survivor. And I want to talk about, how did you have the courage to start something like 6 Feet Above?
So I attempted suicide in 2018. Of course, I had a very long road to recovery after that. But there were two officers who stood by my bedside on the night of the incident, and they kind of spoke life over me. They were like, you're here for a reason. You have a purpose. You know, don't take this lightly. Like, do something with this. And so I had two choices of what I could do with my second chance. I could continue to live with the shame and the stigma that surrounds mental health, or I could talk to every single person who would listen to me and tell them it's okay not to be okay, but better days are ahead and you have to stick around to see them. And so that just became my message. Like, I didn't want to waste those two choices. I didn't want to waste the second chance. And it just gave me a new outlook on life. And it made me want to encourage other people to live life on purpose as well.
And for people who may not be super familiar with the work that 6 Feet Above does, can you give us some kind of examples of what you do and how you're making a positive impact on your community?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing we do is every May for Mental Health Awareness Month, we host the 6 Feet Above Mental Health and Wellness Festival, where we bring in dozens of mental health resources from around the state. We bring in vendors and food trucks. It starts off with free yoga right there by the river. We have the Blue Cliff College students, so like the massage therapy students, they come in and give free chair massages. And we have free self-care craft tables. So make your own stress ball or write a thank you letter to somebody who you haven't told that you appreciate in a long time. And so we average about over 400 people who come to the festival every year. We've done it for 4 years. And so the festival is a huge thing just to create community, but also to let people know that they're not alone in their fight. And it just is a beautiful morning of hope. So other than the festival, we do resource linkage. So if somebody calls me and says, hey, my daughter's struggling, and I have no clue where to start with getting her the help she needs, I would be like, hey, well, what insurance do you have? And from there, I could give them a list of providers in our area that would be able to see whoever. And then the main thing that we do is suicide intervention. And that simply can be a conversation, talking to people about how they can create a safety plan. Think about the reasons you have to live. Think about the coping skills that get you through your hard days. Think about who you can call when you feel really alone. Think about a scripture or a quote that reminds you, of what your purpose is. And so just like I said, having those conversations with people who are struggling and knowing that they have somebody in the community who wants to walk through this journey with them and get them the support that they need.
Wow, that's amazing. I think you said a lot of great things. But one of the first questions I have from that is I saw in your interview, because I know you just celebrated your 4th Mental Health Awareness Festival.
Yes.
And I saw on your interview with Jack, you were talking about how when people first walked in, they had different color beads.
Yes.
Each one represented something different.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and tell us where you got that idea from and just elaborate on that a little bit more?
So I actually got that idea from a mental health walk in Shreveport. They did something similar, but it wasn't exactly like that. And so the beautiful thing about the beads is when you walk in and you sign into the registration table, it's actually my mom working that table, and she's like, look, I just want you to take whatever bead represents your story. And so there's 3 colored beads. One represents if you are somebody who has struggled with mental health throughout your life. Another color bead would represent if you support somebody, if you're a caregiver, or if you're an ally and a supporter of mental health. And then the last color bead is if you have either lost a loved one to suicide, or if you have dealt with thoughts of suicide or an attempt yourself. And so the very powerful thing is you just take this bead and put it around your neck. And when you're walking around the festival, you're seeing, oh my God, that person looks like they have a perfect life, and I would have never thought that they have struggled. And it makes you feel less alone. Like you're just looking around and you're seeing all these people wearing different beads, and it truly makes an impact in saying, look, there's so many people who are here to support, who have dealt with the same things that I've dealt with. And that gives me hope, and that makes me feel like I'm not alone in my struggle. And so it's very powerful. It's very a gentle touch that isn't, loud and in your face, but walking around makes a world of impact. So I love it. It's very special to me.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think, too, it's just symbolic because not everyone is comfortable with sharing their story, and they might not want to get into the details or the pain.
Yeah.
So that is almost just enough.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So I do have a Bible verse here that you had on your website.
Yeah.
I just want to ask how it pertains to your own life and also the nonprofit that you run. Galatians 6:9, let us not become weary in doing good, for at that proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.
Yes. So the biggest thing in that scripture that sits with me is if you do not give up. And that's where hope lies. And so, yes, that scripture has always stood with me. And when I think about the struggles that I've been through, it is hard, to continue doing good. And what I mean by that is I struggle with mental health myself. And I've run into so many hurdles throughout my journey in just trying to get help for myself. And so because I've dedicated my life to not only helping other people survive their bad days, the reality is that I still have a lot of bad days myself. And so I remember when I first shared my story, there were a lot of people who told me to be quiet. There were a lot of people who were like, you do not want to go around telling people that you did this terrible thing, that, you're weak, the stigma, basically. And I cannot count how many people were like, you do not want to do this. This isn't a good look. You're supposed to keep things like this quiet. And that sat with me for a long time, but eventually, for every one person who said, shh, stop talking about this, there were 20 people who messaged me and said, your story is saving my life. Your strength is helping me to keep going. And so that just validated my purpose. And throughout my journey, there has been a lot of times where I got tired. Just trying to take care of other people and take care of myself at the same time. It's very hard. And so that scripture says, don't get tired. Don't get weary of doing what I put you on earth to do. because in due season, you'll reap a harvest, which means God is going to bless you beyond your wildest dreams if you don't give up. And so I'm very, very grateful to say that I have survived 100% of the bad days that I didn't think I'd make it through. So that means I'm at 100%, and that's something to be proud of. And so I don't plan on giving up anytime soon. Even though sometimes I do get tired, I find hope, and there's a lot of people who remind me that it is so important that I don't stop doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I kind of want to go back to earlier what you said when I asked you about what does 6 Feet Above do in more detail. It kind of sounded like, you provide people with a security blanket. And I think life is so fast paced that we don't sit down and ask ourselves those questions of, what do I like to do? Who am I? And it can all just get, I don't know, like discombobulated. And one of my questions is like, how do you teach people to love themselves and that they are worthy and that there is light at the end of the tunnel?
So the biggest thing is by being an example. My optimism, my hope. I can't speak for myself in saying this, but I hope it's contagious. I hope to be so positive and optimistic that it rubs off on the people that I'm around. And so just being a living example, I would say, is the very first thing. But behind that, vulnerability, being open and honest about, I survived a suicide attempt, but I also still survive bad days with medication problems and with mania and with depression. I have not overcome my battle. I am still fighting every day with my battle. But when it comes to talking to people and getting them to understand that, like, hey, it's so important to keep going, I can encourage you all day. I can feed you all this fluff about your best days are still ahead and the sun's going to come out in your life, which is all true and important. But it's also important that we have those tough conversations and we dig into the why. And the why is why are you still here? Why have you survived all the bad days that you didn't think you'd make it through? Why are there so many people who love you and are trying to validate your existence? And connecting to that sense of purpose and learning that life is a gift. And it's important that we take advantage of this gift and we live every single day on purpose. So much so that we enjoy this journey. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are just kind of stuck on autopilot. They're just going through the motions of every single day. Like, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I go to work, I eat, go to sleep, do it all over again the next day and the next day and the next day. And before you know it, you're stuck in a vicious cycle of unhappiness. And that's something that I would never want for myself. And it took a lot for me to get out of that cycle. And so I have literally dedicated my life to helping other people get out of that cycle and find out why they're here and encourage them to keep going and seeing that you haven't even seen your best days yet. But that goes hand in hand with just giving you hope.
In my own experience with my own mental health challenges, but also research as well, one of the things I've noticed is people often feel like they might be a burden if they tell people their problems, because everyone has things that they're struggling with on a daily basis, but also just month to month.
Yeah.
How do you help people rewire that mindset of what they have going on isn't necessarily something that they have to go alone?
So when people are in their darkest hour, and I can say this from experience, when I attempted suicide, my son was 2 years old. And if you would have asked me what I thought about my relationship with my son, I would have told you he is better off without me. I have a wonderful mother and father. And if you would have asked me, how dare you leave them or, not want to stick around to be with them and take care of them and love them throughout your life, I would have told you I am a burden to them. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes when you're in your darkest hour, you feel like if I will open my mouth and tell people the struggles that I'm going through and ask them for help, it's going to be like a burden situation. And so rewiring your brain is saying, I would say having those tough conversations, sitting down with the people that matter to you and saying, honestly, sometimes I feel like a burden. Sometimes I feel like I'm overwhelming you, or I'm putting all my weight on you. And there's a song I was singing to my son the other day, and it's that old song that says, we all need somebody to lean on. And it's so important that you know that you can lean on people. We weren't created to do life alone. I'm a firm believer in that. And unfortunately, fortunately, I have people who love me and who are okay with taking care of me, and I can lean on them. But there are people in this world, unfortunately, who don't have a support system. And I think community comes into play with that. And so if you find a tribe of people, may it be church, may it be a hobby, may it be work, it's important that you build supportive and healthy relationships that help you navigate the tough times in life. And being willing to put your pride in your pocket and ask for help when you need it. Because sure, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, but you never know, they may happily say yes. And so being willing to step out of your comfort zone and ask for help when you need it, and that will change your mindset, because the person who you thought you were a burden to will tell you, I actually love you and I'm happy to be helping you. So, it's just important that you think positively and you are willing to ask for help when you need it.
I bet if people sat down and they really reflected, and this is not the case for everyone, but I would definitely say a lot of people, they probably didn't get through the hard things alone, because you're especially getting different perspectives from people who see the world through a different lens. So I think it's interesting and important to find that connectedness, like you were saying.
Fair enough.
So when you were battling depression very hardcore, what were some of the things that people said to you, or how are you finding support in others, or how are other people helping you?
So everybody shows love in a different way. And so I'm really big into love languages. And people may only take that as in relationships, like romantic relationships. But it is important. For me, for instance, I know my son's love language. I know the love that he wants, and I know the love that he gives. My husband's a totally different way. My husband, I know the love that he wants, and I know how he shows love to me. And so knowing people's love languages and seeing that everybody doesn't show love the same way. And I remember in my darkest hours, and to this day, my mom, when she knew I was struggling, or like I said, to this day, she still does it. And what she does is she says, "Can I come over?" She doesn't want me to be alone. And so a lot of times when people are struggling with depression, they isolate. It's, one of the top risk factors is people who just turn into a crab and they just want to get in their shell, and they are too afraid to, they want to struggle alone. And so one thing I'm super grateful for is my mom always, and she may not have said a word. She would come sit on my couch as I laid on the other couch and cried. And sometimes she would pray with me. Sometimes she would encourage me. Sometimes she would tell me to wipe my eyes, put some clothes on, we're going somewhere and doing something. But there has also been times where she simply was just there physically. And that brought me comfort, because she didn't want me to be alone. So my mom has been one of the biggest supporters. And then I can say for my husband, he shows love in weird ways. If he truly loves you, he annoys you, and he picks on you, and he wants to bother you. And so he's very silly and very playful, and in no way is he childish, but he has a childlike heart, which is pure and which is lively. And so his way of, showing love is kind of just getting me out of that depression and making me laugh. Or I'll tell you one of the simplest things he's ever done to show that he loved me. I love the rain. Oh my, I love it. Like, I don't know what it is, but when you hear it, I get happy. When I'm outside and a few sprinkles follow me, I get happy. The other day we were leaving Walmart and it started pouring, and me and my son ran to the car and jumped in. We're soaking wet. And I just remember laughing so loudly. And he was like, "Why are you laughing?" And I was like, that just made me happy. But one of the sweetest things that my husband has ever done, and that was just bold thing of love, was one night I was very sad. I was laying in bed, and he got up and he opened the bedroom window because it was raining outside. And he knew that me hearing that rain would bring me comfort. And that was one of the, most simple displays of love. But it brought me comfort, and it showed me support. And it really did make me smile on a night where I felt like the world was on my back. And so I've had a great support system. And I'm very blessed to say that people have stood by my side through dark times. And I just want to be that person for someone else. Just letting them know that they're not alone. I'm vulnerable enough to tell you about all of my bad days, but I'm also strong enough to listen to you tell me about yours too. And you never know how much somebody just simply listening to you can make them feel supported. So yeah, that's that.
I have a couple of questions in there. I saw again with your interview with Jack, you gave the example of when you were going through that like major depression season. Your mom, and you gave this example, so I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
As much as you love her, she was like, "You're not praying hard enough."
Oh, absolutely.
And so my question about that is, how did that shift your relationship with God while you were going through that season of depression, and how it is now?
That is a great question. So growing up, my mom will tell you she always knew I struggled with depression from a very young age. And we grew up very heavy in the church. We also grew up in a family that didn't talk about mental health. My mom was kind of raised to be strong and not show signs of weakness, be independent, carry your load with pride. And me growing up, I just couldn't do that. And so she would always say, "Kyah, you have to have faith. You have to trust in God. You have to pray your way through this situation." And the sad thing is that I would lay in bed all night and I would beg God to take this away from me. I would cry myself to sleep praying. And it became so, like, it was just a part of who I was. It became a nightly routine. And as I got older, my mom actually changed her shift a little bit in the support way because she knew I was praying. She knew I was trusting in God. But she realized that, hey, my daughter needs God, but she also needs a therapist too. And so just kind of breaking that cycle in her mind, because if you really think about it, for generations, there has been such a stigma around mental health. There has been such a shame associated with coming out and openly talking about your own struggles. And so she has made a major shift, and that support has come through. But I know when I teach classes and I say stuff like that, almost everybody in the room nods their head and agrees that that's kind of how they were raised. I mean, we live in the Bible Belt. Like, church is a major thing. And some churches don't fully agree with medication or counseling services outside of the church and whatnot. But that was something that she got out of. And she has helped me a lot in my journey with my faith. She would always say the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And one of the most important things in there is he leadeth me beside the still water. He restoreth my soul. And her words would comfort me. Her prayer and her scripture would comfort me through those dark times. And it's important to have faith. Everybody doesn't see it that way, and that's okay. I'm not the type of person who throws faith on everybody. However, it is important that you believe in something, and if you don't believe in anything else, believe in yourself enough to love yourself and say that I deserve to love myself just as much as I love everybody else, and take care of myself just as much as I take care of everybody else.
And from what I'm understanding about this conversation so far, vulnerability is key. Well, at least one of the keys to help people navigate their pain.
Sure.
So if I were to come to you and you weren't trained to know how to help me through my mental challenges, and I were to say, Kyah, I'm really struggling with this, and you don't know how to respond, like, how do we teach people who may not know when they're approached with this to help others?
So I say this in classes all the time. We live in a small town. Did you grow up in New Orleans? I did. Okay. New Orleans is done. Fair enough. So I guess I'm asking, did you grow up in a small town? No. Okay. So people who grow up in a small town, you're walking through Walmart, you see somebody you went to high school with, or somebody you know from church, or whatever it may be, and you're walking and you say, hey, how you doing? And you keep walking and you don't even stop to listen to their answer. Have you ever done something like that? You see somebody you know and you're like, hey, how's it going? And you literally just asked, how's it going? How are you doing? But what would you do if that person said, I'm not okay? We are not trained to have those tough conversations. And we ask the question, but we don't stop to listen to the answer. And it's not because we don't care. It's just in our DNA to just keep walking, and that's just common courtesy. For people who are not trained to see the warning signs, to see the risk factors, and to have those tough conversations, the very first thing I would say is educate yourself on the warning signs, the risk factors, because they're all around us. We see them in our family. We see them in our friends. We see them in total strangers. I mean, think about when you're going through the McDonald's drive-thru and the girl who opens the window, you can obviously tell she is not happy. She's, been working for 12 hours straight. She's thinking about her kids at home. And when she takes your money, it's very obvious that she is not okay at that point. Have you ever kind of got that vibe from somebody? And of course, you can't stop in the drive-thru and be like, oh, well, what's wrong? But you can show kindness. You can show love. You can show respect. And you can be a light. And one thing I encourage people is just simply keep your light on and continue to practice kindness. Not just towards other people, but yourself. Because when you learn to love yourself, it becomes easier to love other people. And that's just something I've learned. And so kindness is key. Communication is key. And being willing to practice empathy. When you hear about something that somebody's struggling with, put yourself in that person's shoes. You can say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry all day long. But when you practice empathy and you say, I don't know what you're going through, but I do understand that what you're going through is something that people struggle with. And I understand that you're not okay right now. And I want to help you get to a point where you are okay. And just putting yourself out there and being willing to not be selfish. We live in a world where we're all on our own agenda, but stopping for just a few seconds to listen, to practice empathy, to be kind, can literally save somebody's life.
And now I know we are in Rapids Parish.
Rapids Parish, yeah.
Is there a specific reason that you decided to start 6 feet above home, like at home? Like, does Rapids Parish, maybe compared to other places in Louisiana, have a higher percentage of people struggling with mental health?
So I'm not going to say Rapides Parish is the worst. I sit on a few suicide task force for the state. And so I can see the data that kind of highlights regions of the state that are doing a little bit worse than others. Rapides Parish is kind of right there in the middle. But the reason I started at home was because I grew up here. And I remember the shame and the stigma that surrounded me growing up. And my biggest thing that I'm proud to say today is I have become a person that I needed when I was younger. There was no one in this town. I mean, sure, there were therapists, there were nurse practitioners, there were doctors, social workers who worked in the mental health field. But there was no one who was having these tough conversations. No one. And I was very involved in the community, and I was constantly looking for somebody that would be willing to share that they felt like me. And I never had that. And so, of course, at a very young age, because there was no representation, I felt alone. And I knew that there were tons and tons and tons of young people who also felt alone. And so my biggest goal in starting 6 Feet Above was to be a person and to have a space where people felt safe, where people felt seen, where people felt understood, where people felt capable. And I'm very grateful that for every single person along the way who has told me I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm giving people opportunities to feel, you know, the movement and the breaking of the stigma in our community.
And I am curious, who's on your board? Because I think I saw that there was a doctor,
Yeah.
a therapist, and why did you choose those people to be involved?
So initially, when I was starting 6 Feet Above, I thought of the most diverse group of people who I knew cared about mental health in the community. And when we first started, we met a good bit, and everybody has busy lives. Everybody has a million things on their plate, this organization and this, you know, requirement, whatever it may be. And so over the years, my board has dwindled, and I'm currently in the process of rebuilding it. And so the people that I'm talking to are the people who are passionate about not just mental health in general, but the conversations that I'm having with new people are people with lived experience. And the reason I want the board to consist of people with lived experience is because I have a good friend. His name's TJ Gorham, and he is very high up in the mental health world. He is a master level social worker, but he's now like an administrator in a hospital in Texas, a mental hospital. And one day we were sitting down, and he said, "Kyah, I've learned it. You've lived it." And the reason we were having this conversation was because I was telling him I feel so unworthy of having these conversations and helping these people. I feel so incapable of having these conversations and helping these people. And so even though, you know, I'm bold and I'm, you know, vulnerable and I'm out there spreading the word, there's a lot of rooms that I sit in and I don't feel like I belong there. I feel like these people know more than me. They can help way better than I can. And his words saying, "I've learned all about mental health. You've lived a life of mental health." And that really did validate me. And it made me know that, I don't know, you know, it gave me the validation I needed to say, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm walking in my purpose, and I'm helping people along the way. And so the people that I'm currently gathering to head this mission and to expand this mission are the people who can honestly say, I've survived this invisible illness. I've lived with the stigma surrounding mental health, and I've gotten better, and I've seen the sun come out in my life. And just like me, they want to help other people do the same.
I'm glad that he was able to share that with you. and make you see it through a different.
Absolutely.
That's a true friend.
That's a true friend. You're absolutely right. And to this day, I'm sure he never knew this, but those words gave me so much confirmation. It validated my purpose, and it made me smile to a point where I was like, I see you, God. Like, I hear you. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing the best I can, and just understanding that the best I can is actually enough.
And earlier you said invisible illness. That's a really great way to phrase it. I've never heard it like that.
Sure.
But I'm very curious. Recovery process is obviously different for everyone, but what is something that most people may not know that wait, hold on.
No.
What is something that most people may not know about the recovery process of someone going through mental health in any capacity?
So when you talk about the recovery process, I think of like getting out of a mental hospital or getting out of treatment or whatever it may be. And so I can tell you, I've been in numerous mental hospitals from some of the darkest days in my life. And when you get out of the mental hospital, they give you like a follow-up plan, right? Like they're like, you need to go see this counselor, you need to take this medicine, you need to do this, X, Y, Z. And the sad part is that they release you and they kind of just trust that you're going to go out there and take care of yourself. And the reality is they don't call and follow up. So they're just leaving you out there to fend for yourself. And over the years, I've learned that there's a lot of people who need their hand held. And that's not saying that you can't do it on your own, but I'm saying sometimes people have a hard time doing it on their own. For instance, when I went to college, Mom wasn't there to give me my medicine anymore. So can you guess what I did? I stopped taking it because I thought I was fine without it. And there's a lot of people who get out of recovery and they're like, oh, I can be happy on my own. I can handle psychosis or mania on my own. And they get off their medicines, they stop going to counseling, they isolate from their families, and they don't get the ask for help when they need it. And it's just a vicious cycle. And so one thing, and this is across the board, not just in Louisiana, this is worldwide, it is so important that safety plans and follow-up plans are put in place. So for instance, if I did an intervention with you right now, and I sent you on your way, and you never heard from me again, would you start to think that maybe that intervention was just like a checking the box and I'm moving on to the next person and forgetting about you?
Yeah, I would feel so alone.
Exactly. And that's something I've experienced many times in my life. And I know it's something that a lot of other people have experienced in their life. And so it's important that you have people who support you and who are willing to literally just hold your hand and say, hey, I'll call the doctor with you. Hey, I'll drive you to the appointment. Hey, if you need to talk, I'm here. I'm a phone call away. And you never know how much a text message, a phone call, the simplest thing can make a difference in somebody's life. But the follow-up recovery is not where it needs to be. And we kind of just trust people to do it on their own. But you have to think about it. When you're at your lowest, when you're struggling, the simplest things can seem very hard for you. And so if you know somebody's struggling, doing something as simple as sending a text message or going by their house to check on them or inviting them out for coffee can absolutely make a difference in their recovery.
Now, I know that you've mentioned medication a couple of times. Everyone, I think this could even be a tricky subject because everyone has their own opinion about it. But I am curious, have you ever experimented with holistic, maybe measurements? Or is just medication the best option for you?
For me, medication has been the only thing I've ever tried. I know that everybody does things differently. I have I'm not going to say I've never thought about the holistic world, because, for instance, I got into essential oils, and that actually made a difference. Like, I enjoyed doing that. I haven't done it in a while, but it was something I really enjoyed. Going to a yoga class, and one thing that I practiced from the holistic world is breathing exercises. You'd be amazed how many people don't breathe intentionally. And so I teach classes about self-care and whatnot, and I ask the question, how many of you have breathed intentionally today? And they're like, I don't even know what that means. We breathe all day long. It keeps us alive. But how many times have you got anxious and started like getting shortness of breath, or your heart started pounding fast or whatever? And so it's so important that people know what works for them to calm them down, to get them through those tough moments. And so for me, breathing intentionally and grounding myself through being present and practicing gratitude, I kind of think that's a part of the holistic world, and it has helped me a lot. So presence, intentional breathing, doing something as simple as picking the flowers on the side of the road, literally just being in nature. It rained for 3 weeks a while back, and that affected me. And when the sun came out, I literally just went and sat in the backyard and just looked at the sun and heard the birds sing and felt the wind, and it brought me joy. And so everybody is different. Medication may not be your thing, and that's okay. But for me, I take my medicine every day because I've noticed that it does help me combat a lot of things. Now, don't get me wrong. I've taken medicines that have had some of the worst side effects, and medicines that have put me through things that you wouldn't believe. However, I've gotten to a point where my medications are working, and I have a lot of tools in my tool belt that even when I feel like the medication isn't doing its part, nature is helping me do its part. Breathing is helping me do its part. Looking at my son and hearing his laugh and just being grateful for that is doing its part. So it's important.
And I know that you do public speaking as well. Have you ever connected with someone one-on-one and helped them navigate what they were going through, and that helped you reinforce that what you're doing is making a difference and a positive impact?
So after I do a lot of my classes, I send out surveys. And every class, there's a portion at the bottom of the survey that says, write whatever you want, any other comments, concerns, whatever it may be. And there is nothing that validates me more than when I read the surveys and everybody's given me the highest score and says, this is one of the best classes I've ever sat through. Don't stop doing what you're doing. You are saving lives. This helped me out today in ways I didn't even know that I needed help in. I've received some of the most just heartfelt responses. And even when I share vulnerability on social media, and after I do a session, the people who stand in line to talk to me, and I feel like I don't deserve that. But I mean, everywhere I go, it happens. As soon as I get done and the people are dismissed, there's literally sometimes a line of people who are waiting to hug me, who are waiting to tell me a little bit of their story, who are waiting to just speak words of kindness and affirmation over me. And I go home and sometimes I cry, honestly, and I show my husband and I'm like, how can I stop doing this? Like, how on earth could I ever give up on this when I know and people are telling me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And no office job has ever given me that validation. No gig has ever given me that validation. No career has ever given me that validation. And making the bold choice to pursue my passion and my purpose full time is scary. Oh my God, it's so scary. Because financially, it's very inconsistent. But I have so much faith and optimism that I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping people get through their bad days, teaching people how to have proper suicide and crisis interventions, teaching people self-care and the importance of it, working with professionals and teaching burnout mitigation and helping them to like not have compassion fatigue and continue to, keep doing what they're doing with purpose. And not just all the classes, but doing something as simple as telling my story. This may sound arrogant, but I say it as humbly as I can. I know I'm saving lives. Not just because people are telling me, I've seen it. I've seen it. And I was at a festival this weekend, and there was a man who I did an intervention with 3 years ago. And when he saw me, he jumps up, he gives me the biggest hug, and he taps his wife, who was the vendor. She had made all this handmade jewelry. And he says, "Honey, this is the girl I told you about. This is the girl who told me that it was going to get better." And he said, "Kyah, a few months after that, I met her. She is my purpose. She has brought so much light and life to my life." And he was like, "And I remember you telling me I just had to stick around to see my good days." And he said, "Here she is, Kyah." And I remember the woman saying, "Please pick any ring you like. I'd be happy," And just things like that. When people are actively telling you that you're making a difference, I'm never going to stop. I can't, because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
I just got chills from that story. Well, I mean, that's just so beautiful, because I was interviewing someone a couple of weeks ago who has a foundation that helps patients who are ill, maybe terminally ill. And my mom is going through hospice right now, so it was therapy in a way for me to talk to her. And one of the things she said was, death in life, the only thing we're guaranteed is death. And that just really humbled me for a second, because I was like, yeah, and it's so final. Mental health can be scary to talk about, but when you, like you said, show people that little bit of kindness, you never know what they're going through, that it could instantly change their lives, even if they don't tell you that.
Yeah. So even something as simple as you telling me your mother's going through hospice right now, I don't know what that's like, but I can't imagine how that feels. And so I just met you an hour ago, and when you walked in, I would have never thought that you were struggling with, potentially your mom going through a really difficult time. And that's just a perfect example of, you never know the battle that somebody is fighting. It may not be mental health. It may not be crisis. It may not be suicidal thoughts, but everybody is fighting a battle that you wouldn't believe. Everybody has a story and something that they've been through and something they've overcome that you wouldn't believe. And so we should all be proud of each other. We should all be kind to each other. And that goes a long way. You never know how much of a difference you can make in somebody's day just by, showing a little love to them. I'm very grateful that you have given me a platform to talk about my truth, to talk about my mission, to talk about my love for the cause. One thing that a lot of people ask me all the time, how did you overcome depression? How did you overcome bipolar? How did you overcome? And I laugh, because I haven't overcome anything. I still have really bad days. Some days that I can't even get out of bed. There's some days where my son takes more care of me than I take of him. And people assume that my fight is won, that my battle is won. But the truth is that every single day I make the choice to put on my boxing gloves and fight through the day. There's a lot of days I get my butt kicked. But I take care of myself. I take my gloves off. And that's one thing a lot of people don't do. They go home after a really hard day of fighting through the day, and then they have to fight through their night too, and they're still struggling and they're still battling, and they don't take care of themselves. They don't rest. They don't recharge. They don't rejuvenate their mind and just get the peace and the rest that they need in order to fight the next day. And so, like I said, there's a lot of days where Kyah is struggling to keep going, but I have so much more faith. I have so much more patience with myself. I have so many more tools to just help me keep fighting. And I'm not anywhere, I've come a long way, but I still have so much further to go. I've done a lot of cool things, but I have, this is just the beginning. Like, I'm just scraping the surface. My dream is still very far away, but I'm so confident that I'm going to reach it. Not just in Louisiana, not just in the South, but I plan to be able to share my story across the world and give people hope that they can keep going. I heard a speaker not too long ago, and his words have stuck with me. I don't remember his name, but he said, connection creates hope, and hope saves lives. And one of the main reasons I think our suicide rate is so high is because there's a lot of people who don't know how to get through their bad days. And I believe that there's a lot of people who truly feel like nobody understands the fight that they're fighting. And so the reason I'm saying that is because connection, if I can talk to you, if I can show you, listen to you, if I can show you that I care, if we can enjoy each other's company, then I'm giving you a little bit of my hope. And if I can give you just a little bit of my hope, I can potentially save your life. And there's no price tag on that. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to turn my past mess into my message. I'm really grateful I've been able to turn a lot of my pain into my purpose. And I've been able to turn every single test into my testimony. And so there's still so many bright days ahead. And I say this all the time, the best is yet to come. I believe that. I hope you believe that. And and it's just the beginning. So I'm grateful for you. And I'm grateful that together we're getting the word out. We're giving people hope, giving people validation, and letting people know, that their best days are still ahead.
Yeah, well, Kyah Springs, thank you so much for being here and doing everything that you do.
Thank you. That means the world to me.